Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, December 7th. I'll wait for Councillor Ming to shut her computer off. It's Tuesday, December 17th. I'm going to call our meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. But before we do that, I just want to share a few reflections about the holiday season. So, the holiday season really is a time for us to come together to share moments of joy and reflect on all the values that bring us closer together as a community. It's a season filled with love, generosity, and hopefully the spirit of giving. Whether through small acts of kindness or thoughtful gifts, we have the power to make a difference in the lives of others. It's also a time for peace, to contemplate peace, not only within ourselves, within our community, amongst our loved ones, but to reflect on that for the world around us. May this holiday season fill your heart with warmth, your days with joy, and your actions with compassion, empathy, and understanding. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Moving on to the land acknowledgement, the municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as right holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to the next item, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? I note that none were received in advance of the meeting tonight. We do not have a closed session. Moving on to item number 4, announcements, updates, and recognitions. Starting with a brief update on CAO recruitment, we are actively recruiting a permanent CAO with support from a recruitment firm and a search committee that includes myself, Deputy Mayor Claire Holloway Woodwani, and Councillor Les Andrews. I do want to note that any final decisions, of course, regarding the CAO will be made by Council as a whole. Our goal is to complete the process in 2025, and we remain committed to keeping the community informed every step of the way. Thank you for your continued support during this transition. Canada Post and Canada Post delays. Canada Post has, of course, as you've heard, resumed operations, but mail service delays are expected. We encourage residents to explore alternative methods for receiving and paying your tax and water, wastewater bills. Please refer to the information on our website for various bill payment options. New Year's celebration at Jack Burger. Join us for our annual New Year celebration on January 12th, 2025 at the Jack Burger Sports Complex, and it's going to be featuring free skating, swimming, and an open house with council. And on behalf of the municipality and council, I wish you all a joyful, peaceful holiday season and a very bright new year. And finally, actually, a couple more announcements. First is around the deputy mayor. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Claire Holloway Woodwani for her leadership in the deputy mayor role over the last year. And as per procedural bylaw and the appointment schedule, our new deputy mayor is going to be Councillor Vicky Mink, who will be stepping into the role as of January 1st, 2025. So we welcome you to that role for the next 12 months. And one other piece of update, and this pertains both the municipality and the county, is that as you all know, we have entered into a formal agreement for the new childcare spot here at the old Ruth Clark Recreation Center. That's terrific. There was a bit of delay for the childcare spot in Canton, but I'm very pleased to announce that that is now moving forward and that we have resolved all of the issues in terms of timing and some of the financial impediments. And so everything will be moving forward with that childcare space in 2025. So between those two new childcare spaces, our community will be well served, and we will continue to advocate for more childcare for the community moving forward. Now, do any council members have any updates that they would like to share this evening? Okay. Oh, yes, Deputy Mayor.
I just an update that there's still a couple of days left to apply for vacant committee positions. There is a vacancy on the Environmental Advisory Committee that we're looking to fill. So I encourage all interested applicants to check out I think it's under the career section of our website with information for how to submit your application.
And Councillor Todd.
I'll piggyback that because we're also looking for Heritage Port Hope. So we're looking for committee members there as well.
Thank you. So keep those in mind, and hopefully we will fill those positions in very short order. Moving on then to item number 5, presentations. It's now time for presentations. We have one presentation on the agenda this evening. Leslie Abram, Northumberland Land Trust, regarding public awareness and understanding of the Northumberland Land Trust mission and mandate. So this is item 5.1. So I now welcome Leslie to the podium. And if you could just press the little button on your right hand side so we can hear you clearly. A bit lower. There we go. Thank you and welcome.
There we go. Thank you very much for having me today and for the opportunity to speak to you. And you're all looking so festive, so it's nice to see you. My name's Leslie Abram. I live north of Brighton, and I'm a volunteer for the Northumberland Land Trust. And I'm here for an information item to let you know what's happening with the Land Trust and what the Northumberland Land Trust is. So we are a private charitable organization, and we are almost completely volunteer run. We were finally able to hire one employee last year, and our mission is to conserve natural spaces in Northumberland County. We have 14 beautiful nature reserves that are home to many endangered species and species at risk. We provide public education and events all through the year. And that's one of the main reasons that I wanted to come here today, is to make you aware of that. We have nature walks, birding walks. We've reached out to the arts community. We have a brand new picnic shelter at our Lone Pine Marsh Nature Reserve. And we had an arts day in nature there last year where local artists and photographers, musicians came out and had a wonderful day out in nature. We know that while these protected spaces are really important for wildlife, they're also really important for people. Being out in nature is good for us as well. Doctors are even prescribing time in nature now for people who feel stress, who feel disconnected. So I'm really proud of the Northumberland Land Trust and where we are headed. I am a member of the board, and this year we are adding 3 more nature reserves. We have, I'll tell you about all 3 of them because they're all unique. One of them I'm really excited because it's right 2 kilometers from my house, near Goodrich Loomis Conservation Area in Cremy Township. Donated by a woman named Derry Haddon. It's about 90 acres of beautiful woodland with vernal pools, salamanders. There's a beaver pond. We'll be having our grand opening in the spring of that one. There's another one called Willow Lane, donated by a couple, Robert and Sherilyn Leckie, and that's north of Coburg. And then the third one is a new thing for us. We're actually purchasing a 300-acre wetland north of Brighton called the Biddy Creek Wetland in conjunction with Ducks Unlimited Canada. We don't normally purchase nature reserves. They're normally donated to us by families who love the land and want it preserved and loved as it is. But Ducks Unlimited Canada was able to pitch in 50% of all the fees, and so we're going in with them, and that wetland that deal will be closed January 31st, 2025. So we're very excited about that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of our community connections. Even though we have nature reserves for wildlife, we also have very good connections with agriculture. We realize that agricultural land is very important. 2 of our nature reserves have cows grazing on them. One of them, the cows are there all year, and the other one, the cattle are just there in the summer. They come pregnant, have their calves, and then they leave for the winter. And then we have a couple of reserves where the farmers cut the hay for their livestock. So we also have one of our reserves where there's a sugar shack and a sugar bush. They make maple syrup there, and another one that has some selective logging on it. So we are connected with the farming community as well. And actually, the Haddon Nature Reserve in Cramie Township has some hay fields there. Agricultural land can be really, really beneficial to wildlife. One example is the eastern meadowlark, which is a beautiful sort of mid-sized black, white, and yellow bird. Loves to nest in cow pastures because it likes to nest on the ground in the little impressions that the cow's hooves make. So there can be very beneficial relationships with cattle and farming. We are part of the tax structure. We still pay taxes as a private landowners. The land trust, we take advantage of the Conservation Land Tax Incentive Program and the Managed Forest Tax Incentive Program, just like a private landowner would do, but we still pay taxes. And our goal is by 2030 to triple the lands under our care. Currently, we have 1,200 acres. This year, we will be adding another 500. So we're well on our way to that goal. And I passed a brochure out, or I didn't, but a brochure was passed out a little earlier. And on there is our website and also our social media. Our Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn are quite active. Our X account is not, so don't go on that. And we put on trail camera videos, remote cameras that catch things at night and tell us what's out in the nature reserves. The one that I steward is called the Lone Pine Marsh, and I've set up a trail camera on the Beaver Dam, and I get all kinds of foxes, coyotes, fishers, nesting birds in the summertime, deer, otters, beavers, of course. And it's really fun to go on the social media and just look at who's living in the reserves. My co-steward, Jerry, had trail camera out in the woods at the marsh and got a great horned owl with prey eating it. And so that was quite the surprise. And so it's fun. I encourage you to follow our social media and also to come out for a walk on one of our reserves. We're going to have a couple winter walks, but we really get geared up in the spring. We're going to have 3 nature reserve openings in the spring, and then we have all kinds of different events. If you're into the arts or birding, last summer we had an event where we looked at moths, and we've had animal track and sign workshops, things like that. So we invite kids out and really want to get the community out into nature and enjoying it. So I really appreciate your time. I am here for information, just to let you know the good news and the growth of the Land Trust and to invite you out to our events. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has as well. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Maybe I'll jump off and ask you. You just mentioned that you invite kids out, and I'm just wondering, Do you actually have any formal programs with schools in the area? And in particular, if you can tell us about some of the activities you've had with the schools in Port Hope.
Right. So we have the Laurie Lawson Outdoor Education Center, which is in Coburg, and it's run by the school board, but it's on one of our nature reserves. So we do not run the program, the school board does, but there are kids out there at the Laurie Lawson Outdoor Ed Center every day. Now, as far as formal education programs that go out into the community, we currently do not have the capacity to do that, but we are growing, and as we develop more staff, some of the larger land trusts in other parts of Ontario, we'd like to model what they're doing and really do a lot more outreach and education with kids. So when we have some more staff, that's something we're going to be able to do for sure.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I have two questions of interest. One is, does every parcel that you have, is it always available to public, or is it sometimes you preserve and people are not able to go through it? And I have a second question, but I'll let you answer that one. And then
Okay, the first question is a really good question. The answer is depends. Some nature preserves are, for example, impenetrable alder swamps with no trails. So they're not open to the public. Also, we have a couple where the person who donated the land still lives right in the middle of the nature reserve. Maybe they had a severance and they have 5 acres, but to get there, you have to go up their driveway. So those reserves, we take the public on walks that we invite them to, but they're not open to just go visit. But we do have 2 reserves, the one I look after, the Lone Pine Marsh, and which is north of Colborne, and then the Laurie Lawson Outdoor Ed Center, where people can go and just go around by themselves. Then the vast majority of them are, if you let us know ahead of time that you're going, then we'll just sort of give you permission to go. We just need to know you're going. And that might be because, for example, I talked about cattle in the nature reserves. And if the bull is out in the pasture and you write us and say you want to walk on that nature reserve, we'll say you can, but don't go in the pasture because the bull is out. You know, it's for your own safety. That kind of example.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the second question I have is there a minimum size of parcel of land that they can people can donate, or can they donate anything?
Okay, another terrific question. And again, it depends. We have an assessment process. Generally, we're looking for larger parcels of land. However, if a parcel of land has a lot of biological significance, or if it is right next to something, another park or another piece of land that's already protected, then we would even consider a small land. One of the really exciting new nature reserves that's going to be in the pipeline for 2026 that has been pledged is a 7-acre piece of land right outside Presqu'île Provincial Park. So it shares the marsh with Presqu'île, and it just adds to that protected area there of the marsh, so it can't be developed. So that's an exceptionally small piece of land, but because it's right outside the park gates, that it's something that we're very interested in. We're going to take. Yeah.
For that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you for bringing this to us, and thank you for raising our awareness. And we look forward to seeing how the work will expand, and hopefully you'll be able to expand the staff too into the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
So the recommended action is identified on the agenda to receive this for information. Can I get a mover and second? A seconder, moved by Councillor Darrell, second by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed. We have no deputations this evening, and we have no correspondence. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Adoption of minutes. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion. Council members may require that specific items be removed for a separate discussion or deliberation or action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. Would anybody like to remove any of the items for separate discussion? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for accepting the adoption? Councillor Les is our mover and Councillor Darrell is our seconder. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed. Moving on to consent agenda advisory committee and board meetings. That's item number 9. Would anyone like to remove any of the items for separate discussion? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder to receive this item for information? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to item number 10, items for consideration. 10.1, report CS 1524, redeclare former George Hamilton School surplus and authorize sale process. This item was deferred from the Committee of the Whole meeting of November 12th, 2024. And I'll now open this matter up for discussion. And is there anything further that anybody would like to add before we vote on the matter? And on this item, I'm actually going to ask everybody to speak and discuss before we vote or consider any additional motions. So who would like to kick off this discussion? Councillor Les.
I understand the unfunded asset being on the book and the cash flow implications, but I don't see the urgency in selling it in consideration as chair of the police board. If we sold the asset off, then we'd have to find an alternate trading facility, and if we couldn't find one here, it would be out of town and it would be expensive to send their people out in terms of travel and meals and overnights and everything like that. And I think it would be more expensive to do it that way with the amount of training that we require than to foot the bill of $25,000 a year for general maintenance.
Thank you, Councillor Les. And I think on this point of costs, I think I'd like to ask the CAO to actually give us a fulsome overview of the cost, because it's not just the annual costs that it takes to operate the facility, but also having sat on the police services board with you, I know that the chief has been apprised of the fact that this did come for a staff report from the request of council, and that 6 months was going to be given to prepare for alternative arrangements. And as I understand it, some of those investigations have already started, including conversations with OPG and other police services boards, because everyone's facing similar challenges with finding training facilities. So I'm going to turn it over to the CAO.
Certainly, thank you. Through the mayor, I just want to address, like Councillor Les said, there is unfinanced capital that are on the books with relation to the purchase of this facility, and that is in the amount of almost $600,000. I think it's $587,000 or something was identified in the report. So one of the things council should be considering is then how do you finance that on the books moving forward, should it not be declared as surplus? And I think that it also factoring in as well the operating costs moving forward, plus the 3 years of operating costs since the school was purchased. Also, the costs associated with necessary upgrades and renovations should be considered carefully, as these expenses can be substantial. And would this sort of investment be justified based on the anticipated community benefit? So certainly understanding that there may be a request to defer and not make the decision tonight, but if so, then those items need to be considered with some sort of direction moving forward when it is discussed for staff on those items. And what potential uses would offset the costs for that building, as I realize it's been vacant for some time and being used for police services at no cost. So those are just some items that I think council needs to consider.
Moving on to Councillor Todd.
Yeah, thank you for that information. I appreciate the fact that we have police services in there, but I know that we have been told in the past that there's a 6-month notice that would be given to them, and that they've been able to look towards that. I'm of the opinion that that asset needs to be disposed of. It's costly to this community. We're not recuperating money back on it. It will continue to be costly. It was brought up in the budget by Director of Finance that, and reiterated by our CAO that it is unfinanced at this point. So we would have to find financing for it, which would be an additional expense on top of that. I'm of the opinion that we dispose of it. If council feels otherwise, I would want to know how we're going to recoup on a monthly basis the money that we are actually spending on this, so that the taxpayers aren't paying for it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I feel like right now my thought is to use your term, Madam Mayor, that we have informational asymmetry at this table right now when it comes to this issue. So I know a couple of members of council have met with members of the police service just as recently as this morning and have garnered additional information. There's been communication from the police chief received by some members of council, but not by others, that may factor into this decision. So I feel a little bit, I don't really have anything of value to add, just simply expressing sort of concern that I don't have all of the information that some of my colleagues have, and I'd like to have that shared and have access to that before we make a final decision on this matter.
I'm going to move around to the rest of the table, but one thing I'm just going to ask is, it was the direction of this council for the staff to come to us with a report, and we got a fulsome report. And I trust that our staff actually did their due diligence in reaching out to all parties involved, including the police services and the chief. And whilst, of course, it would be nice to retain that spot for training, the difference between, yes, it would be nice to retain it versus does it make financial sense on our books? Are there other alternatives? Is another kind of question. And this issue did not come up as an issue in the staff report. And I do know that there was correspondence with the chief on this issue, and had it been a significant issue, I trust that it would come forward in our report. And given our more recent conversations about budgets and overspending and spending additional funding and not supporting budgets, I find it difficult to be swallowing having a conversation about $25,000 of additional resourcing a year. That does not account for the fact that the building is falling apart. There's going to have to be repairs made on it, and it's on our books in a way that is not actually financially sustainable. So I'm finding this a particularly interesting conversation in light of some of those facts, and the fact that we had asked for a staff report and we got a very robust staff report on this issue come forward to council. Moving around the table, and then I'll loop back around. Yes, Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So I actually have something written. I appreciate all the comments, but I wanted to make sure that I articulate my thoughts. So a few weeks ago, I recommended deferring the decision on the former George Hamilton School because I believe we had not fully explored its municipal uses. So I would like to thank staff for the report, and I do agree it was a great report, but based on what I learned from additional conversations and a site tour that I had today, I believe that the building holds significant value that's not quite yet been explored. When it was purchased 4 years ago, we were told it would be a huge opportunity for the rural community. However, since that time, there's been no formal public discussion by council about its future use, such as whether to use it as a municipal facility for training purposes, or even options on how we may sell it as one parcel or subdivide it into other parcels. That discussion has never happened here at the council table. Over the past week, I've had insightful discussions with the UOF instructor, the Port Hope Police Services, and Chief Farquharson. I learned that the school is crucial for police training, including use of force scenarios, which require gymnasium-sized space, as well as other provincially mandated training that must be done in a school setting. Port Hope, Cobourg, and other police services across the province are struggling to find specifically required space for this essential training, sometimes requiring travel and overnight stays. The sales of the building would be a significant operational and financial hurdle to Port Hope Police Services. Also, in my opinion, there's a clear business case for opening the facility to other police services, which could provide financial benefits to our local economy, not only towards the building, but including hotels, restaurants, and stores. These economic development opportunities would also fulfill the original intent of the purchase. We have not explored rental agreements or a fee structure which could sustain the upkeep of the building and potentially improve it without relying solely on levy and tax and ratepayers. I don't believe this has been fully examined, so I believe a decision at this point would be premature. As I spoke in the last meeting, we also have not looked at municipal uses for that building in the future. We will soon receive a land surplus inventory that should address our municipal needs, and we could find other property for sale that could purchase this property in full. So I'm unclear why George Hamilton School is being considered separately from other surplus lands right now. I don't see the urgency in making this decision, especially since it is currently being used on a regular basis by Port Hope Police Services, Cobourg, and other police services. So I do have a motion that I want to put on the table, but I don't know if we want to go ahead and talk to everybody right now. But I will say that I will be asking for a recorded vote on this decision.
We'll be moving on to hear from everybody before we consider any motion. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. So I appreciate all the comments so far. I appreciate what Councillor Mink has to say. I do agree with Councillor Todd there that we have an unfunded building there, and we will have to find a way of paying for this. I realize that there is potential to do something in the future, but how long is the future? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 10 years? How long is it going to be sitting there before we actually come around to actually getting any money back? I also appreciate the fact that the Port Hope Police do use that as a training facility, but I also realize that before we purchased it, they trained for X amount of years too. So there is other methods of training, and there will be in the future. There'll be something else. So as much as I do agree that it is valuable to the Port Hope Police and the Cobourg Police and surrounding, I don't think that should be on the back of our taxpayers right now. And I think that it is something that we can surplus, and over the course of that time, we might be able to find something else that fits even better. Thank you.
Councillor Jarrell.
I would just like to say that buildings, obviously, we all know it's been around for a while. I don't think deferring it 3 or 6 months is really a make or break situation. My tour of the building today, it looked decent to me still, condition wise. Learned that there probably has been a lot of missed opportunity for revenue to come back from the building from our neighboring townships and counties that could use that building. We learned today that Durham Region is going as far as Ottawa to conduct training that could be done in Port Hope. They're looking for a central 401 corridor location. That being said, if it's council's decision to surplus the property and sell it, I think we should explore options, as I discussed with Councillor Mink today, about maximizing our potential on that property, whether that is knocking the building down, making 6 or 8 lots, just kind of maximize what we can get out of it if it does come to a surplus. Thanks.
Thank you. And just before I go back to Councillor Les, I think it might benefit this conversation if we backtrack a little bit, and if Director Gilmore, I can just ask you to again remind us of the process that brought us to this place in terms of council direction and the staff report that came forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Hankivsky. Just with respect to staff direction, I think the potential surplus or the eventual surplus of the George Hamilton property has been sort of, poorly kept secret. That's been spoken to at length at council meetings with respect to that upcoming. And Myself and our former CAO were certainly asked about the timing of a report to surplus the property. That's what we've ultimately delivered here. What council does from here is certainly up to council. Just with respect to the revenue comments and the agreement comments with respect to the Port Hope Police, the building was purchased in 2021. The police didn't start using it until August of 2022. I believe they had previous arrangements for training prior to that. We had discussions, friendly discussions with the police at the time, and it was made clear there was no opportunity for revenue, at least from the police. We were doing this as a partner with our local police service. And it was very clear from day one that the property was eventually going to be, most likely going to be made, recommended to council for surplus. So those have been the sort of terms and the understanding of the agreement. They're in a pinch. They continue to be in a pinch. I dedicated a portion of the report to make clear just how important it is to the Port Hope Police and to very specifically identify that they don't currently have an alternative option. We met with the Port Hope Chief and the Director of Finance, I believe it was September 2023, with respect to what they would need or what they could propose or what they could bring to the table in terms of keeping this property. We were informed they would require 6 months. Again, that was in September of 2023. I'm not aware of any additional information or additional request. It remains to this day as it was at that time, and since they first came to us, an important opportunity for them. But in terms of revenue generation or partnership with other police forces, that wasn't even contemplated at the time they originally approached us. It's really just grown to be that opportunity for them and that opportunity for local services. I would say if we're not disposing of the property, that's council's prerogative. We'll have some questions we'll need answered, not tonight, but we'll have some questions we need answered in terms of financing. If we're going to continue the sort of handshake agreement we have, it's likely we should formalize that agreement, especially if we're going to look at producing revenue from other agencies. And I think, frankly, that would likely merit a review of whether or not that's appropriate for the property. We just certainly haven't looked at that. That hasn't been the intention. We were doing our police service a favor by allowing them in a pinch to use an empty building. But that's how it's insured. That's how we're maintaining it as an asset. And we have not explored plans to, what may be required to bring it up to a standard for ongoing use as something other than an empty property. That was probably more than you asked for, but I'm just hoping to provide some context.
No, thank you. I think it helps to fill out the picture. Councillor Less.
Okay, and I appreciate everything you're saying, and if you recall in a budget process, I'm taking off my council hat and putting on my police hat. In the budget meeting, I made a big point of the police are the only entity in our town that finances their own debenture on a municipal building, being the police station. That's not their building, it's the municipality's building, yet they get stuck with the tab. The other thing was that the municipality does not provide any monetary capital monies to the police. And this is all their capital expenditures are financed out of the reserve. So I would propose either the municipality starts supplying capital to the police and we take our screening reserve, and instead of paying for capital, we buy the building and it becomes a police facility. And that gets you off the hook from all your point of view, or you assume the debenture on the building, which you should probably do as a municipality, and we use that money. And we did earmark in the budget that money, if we got it back from the municipality, would be earmarked for training, and we have a high training requirement. And let us figure out how we're going to charge Durham or Belleville and all the other communities for that facility. So there is a road out.
Councillor Todd.
Right. Thank you, Director Gilmer, for that. That was appreciated, and I appreciate the comments being made by council. as to the possibilities that could happen with this building. I think it's also important to note that any possibility, and whether it's financing or whether we find a revenue stream or whether we find another use for it or whatever it is going to take more studies and is going to take more resources, which our staff do not have, which means we'll have to outsource it, which will cost more money to do that, because we can't just simply look at it in singularity from our own perspective and go, well, wouldn't it be great if? Because I think that's what got us into this spot in the first place, is that we were going to make it something that it couldn't be. And so we're just dragging this out. We're dragging the cost out. We're dragging out the entire process. I think if we were to dispose of it, that would stop the bleeding on it, because it's already financially bleeding out on the taxpayer. And then we can look at alternatives. We have a 6-month window that we can look at for other alternatives. But I don't think adding more studies to anyone's plate is going to work well from a timing resource or a financial resource.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I hear the concern about this costing us money, and that impacts on the tax levy. And I think that's an important consideration. My concern is, from the sounds of things, the police have had notice that they need to find an alternative. We can provide them the 6 months as planned, but they've already had notice, and the sounds of it, they have not found an alternative. It's entirely possible that that alternative will be more costly to the taxpayer if they're having to travel, and there's travel expenses and hotels and all of those things, plus potentially additional staffing while the police are away. I'm just concerned that we're not looking at the full financial implications. And this is not a criticism of the staff report. This is the report we commissioned based on what we knew at the time we commissioned this report. I don't see it as being a bad thing for us to continually be asking questions and make the decisions based on the best information at the time. And this is a different time. We are 6 months at least down the road from when we originally, I think, commissioned this report. And if we have new information, then I think it would behoove us to have that circulated and consider that as part of this decision making. I think that's sound decision making to respond to change in context as it happens.
Thank you. And I'm just going to, as we're going around the circle, just also make a point that when George Hamilton was originally purchased, probably we didn't have some of the complex issues in front of us, including housing crisis. And so we seem to be talking about one particular need and giving that primacy. And I don't remember in any of our sort of draft discussions around the priorities, although we don't have a robust strategic plan in place yet around prioritizing police training. But I do recall having many discussions around this table around the importance of providing opportunities for more housing development, and in particular more affordable housing options in this community. So yes, things do change, and I'm just wondering what we're amplifying at this moment in terms of the big picture. Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So I appreciate all the comments. So I just want to, when I first approached the police on this matter, I was fine with what was provided to me in the police report. My mindset was on potential future municipal uses of that property and forward thinking of, are we missing an opportunity at some point to use this for our municipal needs? When reaching out to the chief, that is when I learned a lot more information. And I learned very specific, detailed information that I don't know if anybody here can answer, such as if our police are down the road in Belleville and there's a call and they have to call in Durham region, how much might that cost the municipality? Does anyone here at the table have any idea of how much that would cost the municipality? So when we're talking about money right now, there's a lot of information I learned in the past 2 days that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And we're throwing numbers around and we're saying we can't afford it, we can't afford it. Let's just dispose of it because it's really the easy thing to do. But I'm seeing a bigger picture over the past couple of days. And that's why I would like to recommend that we defer this discussion. I think there's no stakeholders here at this point other than the police. they're the only ones who will be impacted by us deferring it. As far as I know, there's no other buyers out there, to my knowledge. So deferring this for a little, as far as I know.
Sorry, I think you can assume that because it actually hasn't gone out
I'm just
for
saying as far
any,
as-
yeah, but we can assume that kind of information, or we can't make that kind of statement, I don't
Okay,
think, unless it goes
I
out.
don't know of any reason why we wouldn't defer it. To my knowledge, the only person using it right now is the police. So to my knowledge, I don't understand why we would not defer this discussion.
Any other comments or thoughts on this? Okay, so I think you've got a motion. Let's put that on the table and let's move forward.
The motion that I have is that staff be that report CS-15-24 be deferred until the land inventory surplus study has been considered by council, and that staff be directed to invite Port Hope Police Chief or a designate to provide a delegation to council regarding their needs and use related to the George Hamilton School at 3200 County Road 10.
Okay, and is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Darrell, any further discussion? Okay, Councillor Mink has asked for a recorded vote.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I am going to read out the motion once again before I move forward with the recorded vote. The motion on the floor, which is moved by Councillor Mink, seconded by Councillor Toms, that is that report CS 1524 be deferred until the land inventory surplus study has been considered by council, and that staff be directed to invite the Port Hope Police Chief or their designate to provide a delegation to council regarding their needs and use related to the George Hamilton School located at 3200 County Road 10. So in accordance with our procedure bylaw, we will now be moving forward with our recorded vote. I will call each council member's name. You will vote yes or no with respect to the motion that is now on the floor. We will start with Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor
No.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Holloway Wadhwani,
Yes.
Councillor Mink,
Yes.
Councillor Pearson,
Yes.
Councillor Toms,
Yes.
Mayor Hankivsky.
No.
So total yes votes are 5, total no votes are 2. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Moving on. 10.2 Report DS 3124 Reconditional Building Permit Agreement regarding 6302 Fourth Line. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report? No? Okay. Oh, yep. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to speak to this report. Building Services received a permit application for a conditional permit. The conditional permit is used in giving a permit to permit construction for certain stages of the construction under very unique situations. The Building Code Act allows the chief building official to issue this permit with very specific requirements. One of those requirements is a written agreement between the applicant and the municipality. This report in front of you includes the written agreement, and staff is seeking your approval to execute the agreement. And further, that the CBO be delegated authority to execute conditional permits by including it in the upcoming revisions to the delegation of authority bylaw. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Less.
Can you tell us which structure it is? The one they removed from Coburg?
Sorry. I do know it was a structure located on Elgin Street, where the Fraser Ford dealership is right now. And I'm told that it did have some historic significance to Coburg.
Before my time, Ed would probably know though.
Councillor Mink.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just have a comment that I was quite interested and intrigued by this. So I did my own research and I read from a report quite some time ago that this building was missing and they hoped that it would resurface someday. So I think it's quite significant and amazing that here we are. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's been in a CCAN for about 20 years.
Any other questions or comments? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
The recommended action is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 10.3, report ES 0124, alternate locate agreement, amendment number 3. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report?
Hi, I can give you a brief overview. Thanks through you, Mayor. So this is the alternate locate agreement, revision number 3. It expires at the end of this year, so we're looking to extend this agreement out to 2032 to kind of avoid any more administrative requirements throughout the extent of this project. We're hoping that'll take us to the end. We also use this as an opportunity to make some amendments to some of the administrative changes just with titles and locations and phone numbers and contact and that kind of thing. So yeah, the alternative locate agreement was an agreement that was initiated in 2017 just due to the volume of locates that were required for the project. This is its third amendment, and yeah, so we're just looking to get the bylaw executed.
Thank you for that additional information. Does anybody have anything further that they would like to ask or comment on this? Okay, so that the recommended action is to refer this item to bylaws. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed. Moving on to 10.4, report PS 1824, redonation to the municipality of Port Hope, Protective Services Municipal Law Enforcement Vehicle. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report?
Sure. I can add some additional information. So through the mayor, thank you, council. Christmas came early to the Municipal Law Enforcement Division for Municipality of Port Hope. First of all, they delivered us. David Chatwell, our bylaw supervisor, is doing an amazing job. But secondly, our community partners at Dependable Emergency Vehicles made a very generous donation to support not only our division, but our community by offering a vehicle for us to carry. I apologize, my voice. For us to carry on our daily operations and continued service levels to our community by donating a vehicle to our division. Much needed. Unfortunately, didn't make the 2025 budget, but this vehicle is definitely going to allow us to further our operations, especially with the addition of a new staff member. We only have one vehicle currently, and this is going to provide us 2 to be more efficient and in the way we carry out business on a daily basis. So thank you to Dependable Emergency Vehicles and their operations manager, Mr. Pino Natali, for the generous donation.
Thank you for that. And could you replicate that across all the different departments for all of our different asset needs? It would be a wonderful to hear more of these kinds of reports come forward. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on this very good news story? The recommended action is to receive this for information. Can I get a mover and seconder on this? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed. Thank you. Moving on then to item number 11, committee reports and recommendations. 11.1, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting, December 3rd, 2024, regarding presentation by Ashley Cruz, Northumberland Humane Society, regarding TNR program, trap, neuter, and release. Is there anything further that anyone would like to add before we vote on the matter, which is to receive it for information? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to 11.2, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting December 3rd, 2024 regarding presentation by Sal Garte from Lumex Group regarding rail safety plan. Is there anything further anybody would like to add before we vote on receiving this for information? Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 11.3, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting December 3rd, 2024 regarding correspondence from the town of Aurora request the redistribution of provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding. Is there anything further to add to this by anyone? Okay, can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Darrell. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to item 11.4, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting December 3rd, 2024 regarding correspondence from Stephen Lecce, Minister, Ministry of Energy and Electrification regarding potential new clean energy generation projects. Is there anything further anybody would like to discuss on this before we take the recommended action on the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 11.5, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting December 3rd, 2024 regarding report PRC 1524 Report Hope Agricultural Society Fair Agreement. Is there anything further that anyone would like to add before we vote on the matter? The recommended action is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? As passed. Moving right along to 11.6, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting December 3rd, 2024 regarding report CS 1624 1-year review of procedural bylaw 60 2023 recommended changes and results of community engagement. Is there anything further anybody would like to add? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to start with a mea culpa because what I'm gonna raise is actually something that is based on my misreading of the terms of reference for the youth counselor. It's under the selection committee. I had originally and multiple times read that as being the chair of the, I think assumed the chair of the PRC Youth Advisory Committee. And I see that it's actually the main PRC Advisory Committee. So it strikes me, and I just noticed that late this afternoon. And so it strikes me that we're having a process of selecting a youth counselor through which there is no youth involved in the selection. And I wondered if council might be open to an amendment to that we also include the chair of the Youth Advisory Committee from PRC so that we have a youth at the table to contribute that youth perspective in selecting the youth counselor.
Thank you, Councillor Clare, for bringing that up. Just to add to that, I think it might be better to say a representative from that
Sure.
group, because as far as I know, there is no chair
There.
of that group. So anything further that anybody would like to discuss?
So if I understand correctly, Deputy Mayor, you would like to include an amendment to the motion, which would include that the selection committee for that the terms of reference for the youth counselor be amended by adding a representative to of the Port Hope. What is it called? Sorry, the Youth Advisory Committee.
I'm looking at Councillor Adam for the official name of the group. Okay.
There's actually, I can speak to this. There's an amalgamation of the PRC youth group and the mayor's youth delegation. So it's actually a joint group that could send a representative to be part of that selection committee. Could be the PRC Youth Advisory / Mayor's Youth Delegation. I think that would be straightforward.
Thank you. And again, mea culpa for the lack of notice.
No problem, Deputy Mayor. My recommendation would be to vote on the amended motion first, and then to vote on the main motion. So I will just read it out loud, just so that we're all clear on what the amended motion is. That the main motion be amended to have the terms of reference for the youth counselor to be amended to include a representative from the PRC Youth Advisory / Mayor's Youth Delegation in the selection committee. Correct? Okay. So I think that's moved by Deputy Mayor Holloway Wadhwani. Still needs a seconder.
Can I get a seconder for that motion? Councillor Adam, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you for that catch. It's a really important one. So now we're going to vote on the main motion. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Less. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed. We have no new notice of motions this evening. Moving on to item number 13, bylaws consent agenda. Bylaws are passed by consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove a bylaw for separate consideration and discussion this evening? If not, I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder. Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Darrow. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to item number 14, the confirmatory bylaw. It's now time for the confirmatory bylaw. This bylaw confirms that the proceedings that took place this evening and provides for a formal adoption through a bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? Thank you, and this adjourns our business to be covered on today's agenda. We've reached the end. Thank you very much.